It was the day before Christmas, 1947. I sat on the floor of our small two-room apartment in Greenville, Mississippi, and played with the ball and jacks my mother had bought me at Woolworth's dime store the day before. I had to be careful not to get splinters in my hands as I grabbed repeatedly for the jacks. Even as a 3-year-old, I was aware that life was difficult for our family. Just a few weeks before, my sister Judy and I had been placed on the top of the kitchen table in the middle of the night while my parents took brooms to head up the numerous mice scampering across the floor. I remember the single light bulb that hung over the table and my intense desire just to go back to sleep again. The next day, Daddy brought in a stray cat. We immediately named her Cherry for some reason. She was to be a solution to the problem. Her job was to take care of the mice promptly and efficiently. After one night in the apartment and laying her gift at Mama's feet of several mice feet and tails, she won over Mama's heart. My little red ball bounced out of my hand and rolled down the hall to the bathroom, which another family in the house shared with us. Our apartment consisted of a bedroom, a small kitchen, and a shared bathroom. There were no twinkling lights on a Christmas tree, nor did I smell the scent of sweet sugar cookies baking in the oven. Judy was outside playing with her friends. Mama stood at the ironing board crying loudly as she sprinkled the clothes with a bottle of water, placed them in a basket, and began her task. The room smelled of damp clothes and fumes from the small gas heater which provided our family's heat during the winter. Evidently, since the walls of the apartment were quite thin, our landlady heard my mother's distress and soon knocked on the locked door separating our two apartments. "Frances," she said, "what on earth is wrong with you?" "It's Christmas," Mama replied, "and I don't have any presents for the children. I don't even have any food to feed my girls. Mike is somewhere and hasn't been home for a while." Daddy was known to disappear when money was short and to frequent the bars in town. We didn't see him for several weeks at a time, and we never knew if or when he might return. He was also a compulsive gambler and typically lost whatever little money we might have had at the moment. My friends in the other apartments in the house and I would often talk about Santa Claus and the gifts he might bring to us as Christmas approached. Judy, as a 7-year-old, wanted a new book for reading on a Sunday afternoon while we listened to the radio programs during nap time, such as The Shadow or Challenge of the Yukon. I longed for a dollhouse with many rooms filled with tiny plastic furniture and plastic people. I had seen the dollhouses at the stores in downtown Greenville as we window shopped frequently. They were the tin ones that must have been made in Japan after the war. After my nap time on Christmas Eve, which Mama insisted on, and that it must always be 2 hours of quiet, rest, or sleep, I awoke to a rather loud knock on our outside door. When Mama opened the door, 2 men stood outside, laden with groceries and gifts for Judy and me. "Your landlady called us at Second Baptist Church and told us of your need." Mama let the men inside and they unloaded their gifts into the kitchen table. They put the last of the items on the floor and headed back out the door. And that's when I saw it. My fully assembled dollhouse. I thought I was dreaming. It was perfect. It looked like a 2-story mansion with its many rooms, a living room, a den, a kitchen, a utility room, a bathroom, and best of all, in my opinion, the possibility of separate bedrooms and bathrooms for children. I hugged Mama's legs as she began to put away the groceries. I was almost afraid to look back at the dollhouse for fear that it might have disappeared as quickly as a magician's trick with a coin. It didn't. I played with the dollhouse for hours as I smelled the scents from the kitchen of a large can cooking in our little oven and dressing being made with onions and celery. Mama continued to sniffle as she scurried about the kitchen with the new alley cat Cherry at her feet, who no doubt also wanted a change of diet herself. Judy came into the apartment and began setting the table as she had been taught recently in her manners classes at school. The knife's blade is always turned toward the plate, and the spoon sits beside it, she told us proudly. The fork is on the left. Later that night, Daddy showed up after all and hugged Mama around her waist as she mashed the sweet potatoes and made gravy. "Why are you crying?" he asked. "Haven't I always taken care of you?" I looked up at Mama as the room got quiet. Oranges and apples bulged in the stockings hanging on the windowsill, and a red candle cast a warm glow on a single light bulb above the table. The tin dollhouse sat in the shadows of the waning light of day, with its Mama, Daddy, and 2 children also at their miniature table. Mama knew that Daddy always wanted to be the big shot, as she called him, but as she looked down at me sitting on the floor and then back at him, I think she knew in her heart that the Christmas of 1947 would be the last one we would celebrate as a family. Mama turned back to the sweet potatoes and began humming quietly, "Silent Night." The sweet sound wrapped around me like a soft cotton blanket, covering me with its warmth.